It was very apparent to me that the richest people had trust and everybody else didn't.
Have you ever seen industries that are so old that nobody else can actually break into?
You want them to come back and say, oh, that's my feedback, and maybe I should be investing.
Have you ever seen disruptors in industries? Have you ever seen industries that are so old that nobody else can actually break into? Have you seen companies, financial services companies, healthcare companies, and all of a sudden there's something new that comes in and breaks everybody else? It destroys what we're used to. Uber, Facebook, huge industries that have been doing the same thing over and over again. And so much so, even the car industry taking out horse and buggies. So we today have an industry breaker. So when we talk about trust companies and when law firms and basic trust services, they're doing 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 trusts a year. Our guest today, Alessandro Chesser, actually does thousands of trusts a month. And he did everything through tech focused, using all the newest marketing strategies. And we're going to go into what those marketing strategies were, and how he actually built it to a scalable business. So he's disrupted traditional industries, exploding with his company, but on the same side, has some of the largest venture capitalist backers in the world. Most notably, Bill Ackman was one of his seed investors, as well as other strategic partners. So we're going to go today into how can you disrupt an old styled industry, and also how can you get real venture capital money from strategic partners that can help build and grow your business.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Alessandro, thanks for coming on today. I'm really excited for this episode. So let me just give everyone a quick background about you, and I want you to get into it. Come from blue collar, immigrant family, and then you started this company. You start working in this company called Carta, and that built to a couple $2 billion. And then you left Carta, and all of a sudden you said, you know what, there's a big need in the trust services, and you decided to build this trust company. And now you're doing a couple thousand trusts a month, which is like unbelievable. And you're not even an attorney. Like, you just figured this out. So I want, can you tell everybody how you got to the position you are? And then I have a bunch of questions about trusts, how to raise capital. And if you stick to the end of the episode, you're going to get some secret tips from David Klyman on, I don't know, but they're going to be secret. So he hasn't even told me yet.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks for having me on the show. This idea for this company, Dynasty, it starts very early in my career. My very first job at 16 years old was with Bank of America. I was still in high school. And I started out as a teller, and they quickly moved me over to, I've always been a strong salesperson. So they quickly moved me over to the desk side of the retail branch. And, I was helping people that walked into the bank open business accounts and set up time deposits, and also started dipping my toes into the investment management side and working with the financial advisors, learning about the life insurance policies, and so that's really where I learned about trust. It was very apparent to me that the richest people had trust and everybody else didn't. And so that was like the very beginning of like how the foundation for this company. Fast forward, 10, 15 years, I wound up working for Silicon Valley technology companies. The last company that I worked at, Carta, I started as the first salesperson in 2014. The company had zero recurring revenue when I joined. We basically were automating legal documents. That was the entire vision for the company. It was take legal documents that corporate attorneys were drafting for startup employees and startup investors. And it was when you work for a startup company, they used to give you paper stock certificates and paper option grants when you had your options and you needed to exercise them. You would write a physical check, you would send it to the stock administrator, and they would draft a paper stock certificate and they would give it to you. And so we at Carta, that was exactly what we did. Like, let's take these paper legal documents and turn them into software. And if you go back in time, this is actually exactly what happened in the 1980s. Like, the public stock market used to exist on paper as well. It all got digitized. Now you have all this infrastructure in the public markets. You have the stock exchanges, you have the brokerages, you have the central registrar, the DTCC. And so you have all this infrastructure that makes it possible for you to log into your Robinhood account and buy shares of Apple. Well, none of that existed in the private market, in the startup market. It was all paper. It was all law firms drafting legal documents. And so we came in and we turned those legal documents into simple software, and we created a very big company. At the time I left Carta, after 8 years of working there, the company was doing well over $300 million in annual recurring revenue. I think now they're close to 600 million in annual recurring revenue. And so I kind of took the experience from the banking world and the startup world. The banking world, I got to know trust. In the startup world, I got to know how to automate legal documents. And so it was after Carta when I was thinking about building a company. I had all this experience now, and the problem that me and my co-founders kept coming back to was trust documents. And it's like everybody should have a trust, but most people don't have one. Why? Because there's too much friction. There's lawyers, there's trustee fees, there's all this, and there's a huge lack of education. So like that's the problem we want to solve. It's just like Carta, but it's the B2C version. It's the direct to consumer version. It's not the cap table for startup companies. It's the capitalization table for individuals. It's everything that you own goes into your trust.
So let's talk about quickly what the benefits of a trust are and the negatives of a trust. So can you give just 5 quick benefits of a trust and what are the 5 negatives of a trust?
Yeah, I mean the benefits of a trust, the primary benefit, the reason why most people should have a trust is because a trust helps you avoid probate court when you die. It helps your family avoid probate court. So if you die and you don't have a trust, for example, if you have a will, that will is going to have to get processed through the probate court system when you die. Basically, what happens is you die, and then the court system will come in and seize all of your assets, your home, your bank accounts, your investments, whatever. And it will put them through this probate court process where they go and they basically interpret your will. Everybody shows up who wants a claim to your estate. Your family's going to argue over it. One person's going to say, no, my dad he wasn't of sound thinking when he signed that will. He was old and he didn't really know what was going on. Or they're going to say there's another version of the will out there. It might be in somebody's couch, and so it's going to get tied up in probate court, even if you have a will. That probate court process on average lasts 18 months and can cost your family tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's the largest tax on non-rich Americans that exists is this probate court system. Literally hundreds of billions of dollars goes through probate court every single year. And that money is not the richest people's money. They have trust. They don't go through probate courts. Everybody else who just has a will or doesn't have a will, they have to go through probate court. And so that's the main use case for trust, helping your family avoid probate court when you die. Now there's a whole different category of trusts that the billionaires use. These are called irrevocable trusts. These trusts can, in addition to
Let's
help,
stop.
yeah,
Let's stop for a second. Sorry, I just want to go back 1 second. So what you're talking about, the probate, that if somebody passed away and everything goes into something called a revocable trust. So what is a revocable trust is what you are. I just want to be a little bit more specific. A revocable trust is something that it's basically like you, but mirroring your life inside of a trust. So you could change it all the time, the same tax status. There isn't all these extra complicated things, but what you're saying is there was a huge need just avoiding probate, and you found that need and you created a revocable trust for the D2C consumer. But isn't that expensive? Like, how do people find that information?
the old way of creating a revocable trust, you go to an attorney, you pay a couple $1,000s, they help you move the assets into the revocable trust. Now it's yours. Now, if you need to make an update, maybe you get a divorce, maybe you get married, maybe you have some children, you got to go back to the attorney. The attorney's going to charge you another couple $1,000s just to make that update. So there's a lot of friction in that process. That's why most people don't have one. It's not just the cost of setting it up, it's the cost of maintaining it. Right away, we looked at that and we're like, well, first of all, it should be digital. You should be able to create your trust in less than 5 minutes online. And if you need to make an update, it should be easier to update your trust than it is to update your social media profile. Like that's how we looked at it. We're like, we need to make it dead simple. It should be mobile friendly. You should be able to build a trust from your mobile phone. And so that, it's all these trusts is just a template, a fill in the blank. And I figured this out right away because before we started this company, I went to an attorney. I said, hey, I want to create a trust. And they sent me a literally fill in the blank template. And they're like, here's your trust, fill it in with the answers. I'm like, well, we should just turn this fill in the blank template into simple software. Software can help you understand like what these questions are, how to answer them. It could guide you on the process, right? And so for most trusts, most people don't actually need legal advice. They just need a simple template that says, here's my assets and here's who they're going to go to when I die. That's what a revocable trust does. And so, yeah, we pushed the limits. We made it simple. We made it digital. And for the
How many
first
trusts?
few, yeah,
Yeah. How many trusts of those have you done?
over 30,000.
30,000. How many trusts does let's say, a revocable trust does one attorney do?
Like you said, a couple hundred a year.
A couple hundred a year at a maximum, right?
Yeah.
So you've done 30,000. How long you been in existence for?
We did 30,000 in about 2 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of trusts. So let's go now. Let's talk about. All right, we have revocable trusts that are protecting against probate. You found the need against probate. Now go into the higher net worth, like higher level. So irrevocable trust.
Yeah. So the more that we dug into this company, the more we realized that revocable trusts are not a good business model. It should be free. Like that's what we saw right away. We're like, you shouldn't have to pay money to help keep your assets out of probate court. Like that should be like guaranteed. Everybody should have that at bare minimum. And there's all these other companies that are disrupting the revocable trust space. The original, the OG, that's LegalZoom. LegalZoom made it so you can create a revocable trust for $500. Then there was Trust and Will and Rocket Lawyer, and they're all doing revocable trust. And so right away we're like, okay, we're going to do revocable trust, but we're going to take it a notch up. We're going to make it digital. You don't have to print it out. You don't have to go sign it on and put it in a filing cabinet. Like that was number one. Number two, we wanted to make it as close to free as we could get it. We made it free for the first 2 years. Like it was 100% free for revocable trust. Now we charge a little bit of money for revocable trust, but we offer discount codes through marketing partners, which we'll get into next. And so, but the way that we look at that product, it's like top of funnel, it's table stakes. Everybody should have a simple revocable trust at bare minimum. Even if you have no assets, the best time to create a revocable trust is before you buy your first home, before you open your first bank account. That way, when you open that account, you have your trust documents and you can tell the bank to put it straight in your trust from day one. That's the only way we're going to be able to get rid of this probate court system is like everything should be in trust immediately when you acquire a new asset.
Nice. So irrevocable.
Yeah, so irrevocable, as we dug in, we noticed that this is the type of trust that everybody wants but nobody can afford. The richest people use irrevocable trusts, and the benefits of an irrevocable trust are not only does it help your family avoid probate court when you die, but irrevocable trust can also protect your assets from lawsuits, creditors, bankruptcy, even divorce. Better than a prenup. Prenups aren't that useful. A lot of times they can get tossed out by a judge, and your assets can get divided. An irrevocable trust, on the other hand, if you set it up properly, your assets are 100% protected. Here's the difference. With the revocable trust, think of that like you put your wallet in your back pocket. You still own it, you still control it, but if somebody robs you, you have your wallet. They're going to take your money. Irrevocable trust, I'm taking my wallet out of my back pocket and I'm giving it to somebody to put in a secure vault in Nevada, even better. You're putting it in a vault in Nevada. Now, if somebody robs me, I have no money on me. They can't take it. There's nothing to lose because I don't have anything. Everything is in my vault in Nevada. That's the difference with an irrevocable trust. It's a fortress for your assets. That's the primary use case, asset protection. The next use case is for people who have higher net worth and they have potentially large built up capital gains.
What does that mean, higher net worth? If you can just break down the numbers.
Yeah, I would say for people that have large if you have capital gains of over $1 million, you could potentially get tax benefits by moving your assets into an irrevocable trust. Or if you have your assets are getting closer to 10 million or more, then you have to start worrying about death taxes. That's where an irrevocable trust can help you as well. And so depending on how you structure it, you can get tax benefits from an irrevocable trust. That's what the richest people do. I don't think that's the mass market use case. That's why I said like asset protection is more of the mass market use case. Taxes only the higher net worth individuals have to worry about it. Like, let's say you have some stock. Let's say you're a startup. And here's the person who can benefit from an irrevocable trust most from a tax perspective. I'm just going to talk about my world that I know very well. Startup founders who have their companies getting more and more valuable. They can create irrevocable trusts to completely eliminate capital gains taxes. Like, that's powerful. And I learned about this from one of my old colleagues who sold $40 million worth of startup stock and paid zero capital gains taxes because he created 4 trusts. Each trust got a $10 million qualified small business stock exemption, and he got $40 million tax free. And so we were like, yeah, that the startup founders can significantly benefit from this, and that's one of the main reasons why we started this company. We wanted to help that group of people specifically.
Startup. So just so it's the QSBS, the Qualified Small Business Tax. What's the S stand for?
It's called qualified small business stock. And
Qualified Small Business Stock. It's a very powerful tool. Check with your accountant and your attorney. But just to understand that this tool is out there to help shield significant capital gains up to $10 million, which is enormous. But so you're finding this market of these higher affluent people or people who are growing or who people are building. So you went first is, okay, the mass need is revocable, but that's very easily copyable. But then there's the extra niche of higher net worth clients that you're actually targeting too. And how are you breaking that? Like, let's say how many irrevocable trusts does an attorney do a year?
I mean, it depends on the law firm. Sometimes they can do a single attorney might do 5 to 10 a month max. Like,
Okay.
they're not doing a ton. These are like higher price points. Usually the average attorney is just doing a couple a month, right? And they're charging $10,000 to $20,000 each.
And how much are you how many are you doing?
Well, we just started, so we're doing one every few days right now.
So you're already beating the attorney.
We're being attorneys. We have a lot more scale. I mean, we have our marketing strategies that are very different than their marketing strategies. But we're brand new because we just became a licensed Nevada trust company 2 weeks ago. We
Oh,
just started offering, because in order to use a Nevada irrevocable trust, you need a Nevada trustee, somebody that lives in Nevada that can serve as trustee for you. Most people don't have that. They don't know anybody in Nevada. They live in Florida. They don't have anybody in Nevada. Or they live in California or New York. They don't have anybody in Nevada. So what they have to do is they have to work with the licensed trust company who can be the trustee for them. These trust companies usually charge anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 a year for the trustee service. And so we became a licensed trust company. And so just like we're disrupting the trust creation side, now we're also disrupting the licensed trust company side. And so we offer trust company services starting at $500 per year instead of starting at $3,000 per year.
yeah, it's amazing. So let's only because I have a lot of questions and we don't have that much more time. And because my dad is like texting me like, "Hey, hurry up! I have questions." And you see him writing diligently, David K, the big dog. Um, so what I know from your company, just because we're friends now, um, is so you found these disruptions of these two, let's say these two sectors, but you raised capital from like enormous people. I mean, I know it's public, so I want to talk about how you raised capital, and the second side is how you marketed this so well and so quickly, because you just started 2 weeks ago, and now you're doing like more than every attorney out there. So let's go into how did you raise capital? Who'd you raise capital from, and why specifically them?
Yeah, so I'll put this into 3 different tranches. We raised just over $2 million 3 consecutive times in a row. So the very first $2 million that we raised, that was through investors that we knew. It started out being investors that I worked with at Carta that I knew and I was friends with, and I had been telling, they told me, if you're going to start a company, we want to write your first check, right? And so these were Carta investors. They knew me. They saw the traction that we built at Carta. They worked close with us and they wanted to reinvest. So that started out, that got me to like the first $1 million. Once you get the first few like anchor investors, now all the other investors are going to have FOMO, right? And so that's what happens. We didn't
Right.
go out saying we're going to raise capital. The worst thing you can do, especially as a brand new company, is go out and do a road show and talk to every venture capital firm. Because like if you have no commitments, like they're all going to be scared. Nobody's going to want to invest in you. And now you just went to market and you had a failed fundraising. Like it's going to be impossible for you to raise money unless you build some serious traction with your business. But instead, if you just have an idea, which is where we were at the very beginning, we just had an idea. If you just have an idea and you want to raise capital, what you do is you go out to friendly, if you know any, like you go out to friendly invest, or even if you don't know them, you ask for feedback. You tell them we're not raising money. We don't need to raise money. Like we can bootstrap this for as long as we need to. But I want your feedback because in the future I might want to raise venture capital financing. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. You go out and you do feedback instead of asking for capital, and eventually if you build it, you're going to get the feedback and you're going to iterate on the feedback, and at the same time you're building a minimum viable product, or you're building some type of traction, and eventually you're going to get somebody who's going to say, okay, like I want to invest, let's do this. Once you get that first commitment, especially if it can be a sizable commitment, now you go out and tell other investors you're raising capital, and that because you have the anchor already there, and everybody else will just want to follow depending on who they are. So that's like important. Like you don't want to go out saying you're raising capital before you have any commitments. Go out and ask for feedback. Once you get somebody that wants to invest, then you can go out and say you're raising capital once you have commitments.
But you got like, I mean, you're public about it, and so is he. You got Ackman. Who's the other major friend? I forgot his name.
Yeah, so we the first tranche of investors that we got was Bill Ackman was one of our anchor investors, and it was really his family office. I work with
Yep.
the
Right.
the individual that runs his family office, and so Bill, just like the other investor that we have, who's the founder of Insight Partners. Insight Partners is a large New York firm, over 100 billion AUM. And so these ultra high net worth individuals, they love our company. Like the second we start talking about trust, like they're swimming in trust problems, right? And so we have the natural advantage of like being a relevant pain point for the richest people. So when we pitch the richest people, they're like, yeah, we want to solve this problem for me alone. For them, they want to solve it, right? And so that's the early investors were the ultra high net worth individuals like Bill Ackman, like the individual from Insight Partners, and we also got Silicon Valley venture capital firms, right? We got Original Capital, we got Tribe Capital, we got Soma Capital, we got Alumni Capital. What happens is, as you like I said, the more investors you start getting, the more you create FOMO, and everybody wants to invest. That was like the first group of investors. The second group of investors, we had to build some traction, and so from that's your next question was the marketing, right? You had to have a product, take it to market, and show that there's a lot of demand for it. Like that's your proof. The site, when you raise your first round of financing, you can do it based off an idea. If you do it, if you're good, if you do it the right way. The second time you raise money, you need to have serious proof points. You need to show that you're able to generate demand for what you're building. And so for us, we were like, okay, we're a direct to consumer company. And that's the other fold here. The other wrinkle is that nobody wants to invest in direct to consumer companies. Everybody wants to invest in B2B software companies. And we're doing the opposite of that. We're going direct to consumer. And the reason why nobody wants to invest in consumer companies is because it's very difficult to market consumer products. And the old model is just go spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads. And no investor wants to hear that. If you tell them you're going to go out and buy some Facebook ads, they're going to tell you you're not going to raise venture capital because it's very expensive. It's hard to influence people that way. And so the new model, that's the old model. The new model that we are riding the wave of is short form video. Is TikTok, is Instagram, is YouTube. It's finding influencers, podcasts like this, right? Getting on podcasts, but also finding influencers who have large followings. And instead of me going in the old world at Carta, where I would go sell to SpaceX and convince them to use Carta, it's a B2B, a big B2B deal. Instead of doing that, and then you have to go through procurement, you have to sell to the entire organization, you have to get the board members involved, and it's very difficult to sell like that big customer. Versus now, I can just go to a influencer with 5 to 10 million followers, and I could go straight to bang down the door and get a conversation with them and get them excited about what what we're building and get them to want to partner with us and want to start pushing us through their channels. It's much quicker. It's only one decision maker, right? It's not a normal procurement process with a large company. So like going to influencers and getting them to partner with you, we've been very successful at that. And we've got some big influencers. Our biggest one is Graham Stephan. I think he's got like 7 million on YouTube. And so that was the first one that we partnered with.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest. He's probably the biggest financial influencer in the world.
Yeah, he's a big one. He's very helpful. I was able to spend some time with him a couple weeks ago in Vegas, but
And you're using, and what I love about what you're doing is you're being very strategic who's investing, but you're also being very strategic because you're saying to them like, look, you help me, I'll help you. Meaning you help me make money, I'll help you make money, and everyone's like a partner, and that's something I think is so unique in your space. It's much more on giving, and much more, and I'm hoping, and I want to switch this over to my dad, but what I'm hoping that people are understanding is that doing a startup is also about how you grow your startup through the back end, which is how do you market and how do you raise capital, because you're going to need that. You don't, I mean, you already have your cash flow positive, I'm assuming, already.
no, not right now. No way. We just became a trust company. Expenses went way up, but we can be in like hopefully 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, that's not like, that's amazing. I mean, and the revocable trust part is that, I mean, that's, I'm assuming, cash flow positive.
That thing is that's a loss leader because we basically give it out for free. So like that's there just for top of funnel. The business that's has very good profit margins is the trust company business, right?
So that what you're doing is, and what I love what you're doing is, you figured out how to market it, you figured out how to raise capital. Your run rate is low enough that 6 to 9 months you're already
Yeah.
breaking even, which is incredible. And then now you're building something that you have real scale, like unlimited scale, and that's why people want to partner with you. And it's so unique in the startup world because people are trying to, and the biggest mistake that we're seeing is that people will try to start a company, they'll try to knock down friends and family, and they're going to do like the traditional methods, Facebook ads. Oh, we're going to talk to every person, or we hired a sales team, but they don't have a viable, scalable option for number one, sales, and number two, raising capital. So you've figured out those two things, and that's really foundational. My dad, I want my dad to come in and kind of talk about from his perspective. Dad, if you want to unmute yourself, I'll let you. I'll let
I
you
am
come.
unmuted.
You're
Nice
on.
to meet you, Alessandro. Thank you, Yair, for letting me in and have my 2 cents worth. And just to me, it's really incredible, to tell you the truth, because I'm a little older than Yair, and even though you have some gray in your beard, Alessandro, I think I'm probably a little older than you. So I have seen, like, I remember the days in the '80s when everything was on paper, and now that you've changed that, and just part of the process. I actually grew up in Toronto, and there's a museum in Ottawa which shows you all the old things, that a typewriter, a fax machine, all of these, a rotary telephone, like these people that nobody knows what they are. I brought my kids in. I don't know if you were there yet, here, but you guys didn't even know what they were. Like, you're trying to swipe on the on the typewriter. It just doesn't work. But now you've taken that old format, and taken it into the new century. So it's really something incredible. But you know what? On my other side, and something that I think we find in our advisory, when we're talking about life, people still want to talk to people. So, I'm asking you, like, that might be something, like, maybe that's a bit of a block that you find. Is that the case? Like, people maybe don't want to go online and start their trust, especially if it's a revocable trust. The high wealthy people, they've got a network of advisors, and they are looking for people to tell them what to do. They're not going
I
to necessarily go online.
I think there's people that fall into both sides, right? And I'll give you an example. I got a guy out of New York that's got a big wholesale grocery distribution business, like 60+ million dollars, and he came inbound. He saw one of our TikTok videos, and he wanted to put his business in a trust. And he had a bunch of trusts already set up, but like this particular business was not in a trust yet. And I said, okay, well, yours is a little bit more complex because you've already used up your entire lifetime gift exemption, and so you need to sell your business to the trust, and the trust is going to have like a
I don't
mortgage
know
on your
yet
business.
here if you want to say what the gift exemption is, because maybe people don't know what that is, and that really affects the trust as well. Do you want to just comment on that a little
You
bit?
Yeah,
can, yeah, go ahead.
talk about that. Do you want me to talk about it? I could
Go,
talk
yeah.
about it. So basically, there's a number that you can gift to anybody, a certain number. So it grows with inflation. Right now, it's about 12.5 million per person. It's growing with time. It can be rolled back at the end of this year. But basically, you can gift, if you have a significant estate, you can gift a certain amount of dollars to your kids, to anybody that you want to, without any estate taxes. Anything above that has an approximate about 40% value of tax that you're trying to eliminate. So you put into irrevocable trust. It's a big plan. So I'll
So that'll save you on the taxes.
That's right. That's right. And so, but once you exceed that threshold, then you have to get more creative with how you can get your assets into the trust. You have to sell them to the trust, or you have to lend them to the trust. And so, for this particular individual, to your point, I was like, hey, we should really pull in an attorney. Like, you need to work with an attorney. And he said, I'm swimming in attorneys. If I wanted to work with an attorney, I would have already done that. I don't want to work with an attorney. That's why I called you. I'm done with attorneys. Like, let's just figure this out. I want to do it simple. I want to do software.
Attorneys
I
can be
don't.
very annoying. It can be very
He's
annoying.
exactly. He's like, I don't want a box of paperwork that I'll never understand. Like, I want what you're pitching on your TikTok, right? And so there's two categories of people. Some people may want the attorney, and some people don't. We're going after the market that doesn't want the attorney.
Yeah, but I think
And
it's
then
a
for those that want the attorney, we have attorney partners. We'll put that's why for him, I was trying to connect him with the attorney because we don't need to draft the trust. We just want to serve as a trustee. That's our business. So I'm like, we'll work with the attorney on the trust and we'll be your trustee. And he didn't even want to do that. He didn't want to work with the attorney. He wanted to work with us directly.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Attorneys can be very annoying, but it's actually a good point. That's what your market is. You're looking not to be the attorney or replace the attorney necessarily, but to do the trust. But let me switch over also. And I know we were running out of time on the way that you've raised your capital. Also, that Yair says. I mean, he said I had some secrets. I don't know about that. So I used to be good friends with the founder of Sirius Satellite. So I remember when he was raising money they had to build like 3 satellites, one crashed, you had to go back out. He would go on that road show. And I remember when he would tell me, like, it's exhausting. Get on the plane, get off the plane, get on the plane. And then if you don't get that those first couple, exactly what you were saying of investors, you're out of luck. And you can end up with nothing. So I love the fact that you start off with asking just for feedback. That's a low pressure, but in a way to approach people and develop that relationship, because really it's all about relationships, which I think that's what you're looking at. And I think it maybe goes back to that kid in that Bank of America when you're 16 years old. You're just looking for feedback, for relationships.
That's right. It's just about that's 100% right. Like I never, because if you go and ask people for money, it's exhausting. And we did that at Carta too. And if you get a bunch of no's, it could kill your entire company. Like the word gets out that you can't fundraise, you're going to run out of money. What you need to do is the exact opposite. You shouldn't be asking anybody for money. You should be asking for feedback, and people should be asking you to invest. When
Well,
you
that's
can,
the thing, right? You want them to come back and say, "Oh, that's my feedback," and maybe I should be investing.
that's right. That's right. And
No,
then
we're
once
full
you,
right now. We don't have any more room for you.
that's
Sorry.
right. And once you get the first few, once you need an anchor, that's what it comes down to. You need an
Yeah.
anchor investor. And so for the the original like friends and family angel round, it was Bill Ackman, and that was a great anchor. And we had a couple other investors that invested the exact same amount as him. We had like a few anchors. And then for our seed round, our official seed round, we had there was two main. One anchor came in. It was Palm Drive Capital. And then somebody else wanted to come in and lead as well. They co-led. It was Crossbeam Capital, another East Coast firm. They're a great one. They actually, you may be familiar with them. Their largest LP is a company called Merchant. Merchant, the way they positioned it to me is the largest RIA roll up in the country. They have like thousands of financial advisors. And so they co-led our seed round, and then we just did a seed extension, but that was just insiders. I again didn't go out asking anybody for money, but our true anchor investor who's invested now 3 consecutive times and has more shares than anybody. He's the founder of Insight Partners. And so he saw that we were getting our trust company license, and he wanted to get more connected to the company. And he's almost like a four.
Everybody wants to get on the ground floor of the next Google.
That's right.
Everybody wants to be, everybody wants to make that 300%
That's right.
or
And
1,000.
What Google did for like the advertising business, like if you think about the trust company world, these trust, you have Dunham Trust Company, you have Premier Trust Company, you have Bridgeford and Triton. There's all these old companies with fax machines and printers, right? People wearing suits, right? It's different than the world that existed where we're at, where we're in t-shirts and
The
computers,
world is different now.
right? And so,
World is different.
but these trust companies are massive. The amount of revenue that they generate, and they're only servicing the top 1% right now. And so the ability to open that up and service everyone and to do it with true technological scale, like that's why our investors are so excited.
I love it, and I love the innovation, the product, and the excitement, and also the disruption, and that's really what we need. So, for those who are listening, I just want you to just think about it for a second. That's something that is bothering you tremendously, like something that that you understand every single day in your business, and that bothers you like crazy. And that's how Alessandro did it. That's how we built our business. We just found things that were bothering us as individuals. We felt financial literacy was something that was just bothering us. It just wasn't being understood, and understanding how people think and their values. And these were things that people weren't doing. So we went, let's just dive into it. And people can't get to advisors. How do we eliminate the friction between a client that's actually looking for an advisor and actually getting to an advisor that fits them? So we found that disruption. So when you're thinking about your next either startup or joining a company, or looking to be part of a company, find if they have solved the need and the pain points. And then if they fit the actual category that Alessandro did to raise capital and to be able to grow, that's where you really want to park your horse, and you really want to put your time and energy into. So just jumping into a startup, hoping they're going to get there, but make sure they have the pieces here that we're giving to you exclusively on the Resilient Riches podcast. So Alessandro, thank you so much for coming on. David K., thanks for the secret of David Margulies, your Sirius Satellite Radio friend.
I know you're supposed to say the name.
No, you said it already. So you said the name. It's not that hard. But and Alessandro, we love seeing what you're doing. We love seeing these types of founders and growing. It's hard to find people that are actually in the building stage and understand the right pieces. Alessandro, how can people get in touch with you? How can people get their first free trust if they go onto your site? How can people use your trust services?
You go to getdynasty.com. If you have questions, we have an AI that's trained on thousands of attorneys. You could literally call it and ask it any question you want. But the website, and then how to find me on LinkedIn or TikTok. I have TikTok too and Instagram. But Get Dynasty on any of those channels, or just find me, Alessandro Chesser.
All right, Alessandro, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you on the next one. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member at FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth Inc. is a separately owned other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth Inc. The opinions expressed herein are for general information only, as not necessarily the opinions of Osaic Wealth Inc. or its representatives. It is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendation for any individual. Please consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation.